Hello, I'm Valerie Young, board member of Arlington Independent Media. We have been producing conversations with Arlington County candidates so that you can make an intelligent vote. Our next series features candidates for the Arlington County Board. They will be talking with our panel. Karen Bate, founder and CEO, KB Concepts, and the 2022 recipient of the Arlington Women of Vision Award. Saul Reyes, executive director, Bugata. Vivian Williams, Washington Liberty High School class of 2023. In this episode, we will be speaking with Susan Cunningham.
Hi, Susan. Can you share with us what motivated you to run for the county board?
Sure. I think it's a really important time for our county in that we've been through a really difficult time of COVID and upzoning conversations that didn't go very well. And so for me, it was bringing our community back together to solve problems and to be the best that we can be.
Great. My generation is often overlooked, especially given some of us cannot yet vote. However, we will be the next leaders and make the next big decisions. We believe in inclusivity and solving the problems that the older generations could not. How will you represent and advocate for a generation you yourself are not a part of?
Absolutely. Well, I am the only parent of kids in APS right now, so I get a pretty strong earful of middle school and high school folks. I also grew up on a college campus, so I actually watched all the generations do that handoff, and it's really fun to still visit college campuses. So my goal is really just we are one community, and from age 0 to 120, we're all part of that community, and we each have something amazing to offer. And one of my top priorities is really reconnecting our young people up to 30, really, who've had a different upbringing these last couple of years and different exposure. So I'm really eager to hear from your generation. I get to hear one lens of it, but eager to hear more. And I think a lot of the solutions will come, as they always have, from the younger folks who are coming with new ideas.
That's great. And Susan, what strategies do you believe would be most effective in implementing programs that cater to the diverse economic and racial community in Arlington, with a particular focus on supporting the immigrant population?
Yes, it's a huge and really rich, as you know, Saul, part of our community is the immigrant community and the diversity of that community. I've been really privileged as the CEO of HC briefly when we got a chance to work together to really work with a lot of our affordable housing residents, and many of our immigrant community do pass through there, whether they are there now or not. Also, right next door to us, we have a wonderful Afghani family of 16 who we spend time with daily on bike repairs and other exciting fire alarms and things like that. So the trick is, as a very, very multicultural community, one of the things we have to get better at is engaging with each other across those cultural differences. And some of the strengths we've had in the past and some of the strengths we have with the younger folks coming up need to come together. We need to try a couple of different engagement methods to make sure that we're reaching folks. And we're not going to get it right all the time. So it's going to be a continual process, but part of it is making sure we have everyone at the table or at the phone or at the laundromat, wherever it is, so we hear the ideas and then work together to test them out and improve as we go. But it's part of who Arlington has always been, but it's an evolving part and a really important part of our community.
Thank you. In 2020, during the peaceful protests that followed the murder of George Floyd on video by police, the Arlington County Police was called to action by the former police chief to protect the president while he made disparaging remarks about the protesters. How do you plan to ensure ACPD has clear guidelines against racial and economic bias while fulfilling their mission to keep us safe?
It's a great question, and that was one of the more complicated moments, I think, in our nation's history. Our local police force is extremely well trained and usually gets it right. And I think that is well recognized across police forces and security agencies across the region. We are in a very complex region from a security standpoint and from a jurisdictional standpoint. And so it is really important that we have those relationships with the adjacent counties to be able to have each other's back. And I think we saw that particularly on January 6th. And I think that our force did an amazing job in a very difficult time of showing up, but also hanging back as they were trained to not make the situation worse. That training is going to be ongoing. The situations continue to evolve. And they will say themselves like that they study the body cams and they study and get better each time. But as a community, we need to be clear about what our ideals are, be clear when we get things wrong, and be clear about how we're going to make repair. But I'm very proud of where our force is. I got a chance to do a ride along with several of them on a Saturday night, so got a new lens on how much they are responding to such varied issues in our county, and most of the time responding with care and respect across all of our cultures.
Thank you. A topic that is not only important in Arlington, but also on a global level, is climate change. How do you plan to approach your role on the county board through the lens of climate change?
It's a really, really important, and back to your previous question, for our young people, it is, for all of us it's existential, but for our young people it's very, very front and center, as it very much should be. So my background is as an engineer. My focus was on renewable energies way, way back in the 1900s, as my kids would say. And I've had the privilege to include that in most of the work that I've done across my career. So most recently in affordable housing, was able to do some of our biggest solar power installations in the county. Prior to that, I worked with Gensler, which is an international design firm, on getting their sustainability credentials and their sustainability consulting focused. And the real piece about climate change is that everything is connected. You know, there's that old song about like the knee bone is connected to the ankle bone. It's more complex than that. And so you always have to come at it with a systems view. There are trade-offs in every decision that we make, whether it's a choice about where to put housing, how dense to put housing, how to change buses, how many buses to have. And so each of those decisions, we need to be really clear that climate is always a question and should always be in the top 3 of the considerations. And we will need to continue to do that. We have a lot of great plans from the past, but we'll need to continue to fine tune them. And stormwater is a particular passion of mine, stormwater and trees, which, as we've been urbanizing quickly and the climate's been intensifying, the storms have been intensifying, just went through one of those very intense storms on the way here. We really need to think about how do we hold that water and guide that water so that we don't create life safety issues, we don't create additional costs, and that we're nurturing our streams and our wildlife as well.
Great. And as you know, 65% of Arlingtonians are renters. And affordable housing is key to preserving community. And we know that the county board has been implementing the Affordable Housing Master Plan by investing record amounts in the Affordable Housing Investment Fund, in the Housing Grants Program, and in eviction prevention. With the recent acquisition of the Barcroft Apartments, what strategies would you use to provide housing to Barcroft residents who are below the 30% of the area median income? And do you have any suggestions on how we can make more affordability at Barcroft?
Sure. So I think Barcroft is such an amazing effort to really, we got very close to letting that whole property go to sale to a market rate developer. And we made an exceptional and generational investment as a county to try to preserve enough affordability and add back affordability so that we could really meet our current residents' needs as well as future residents. I know there are strict goals there about the 30% AMI and others, and I think on paper it looks like it is going to work. The details are always harder in reality than on paper, and we're talking about real people and real families needing, even if you're moving from one side of the street to the next, moving is extremely disruptive, and that, and you have to find all the paperwork and get all of that settled again. And so I think there's a huge piece of supporting families and understanding from residents where they are, what they need to get through that transition, and how to make it possible to stay in those 30% AMI units. I think beyond that, there's been some great efforts with the Community Foundation and with others in the community to say we have a huge gap in our most vulnerable population, which is our largely our immigrant population, of 0% AMI and 30% AMI, depending on your circumstances, particularly for family-sized units. And so I think we're going to need to continue to lean into that. Some of that will be, contributed at Barcroft, but we also need it all through the county. And like I said, the neighbors next to us, it's a large family that we can't support in any of our committed affordable units today. And for that family and for many other families, having either a single family home or a townhome, ideally one that is still moderately affordable or has, at least paid for, can be part of the solution. And I think we need a lot of tools in the toolbox to get housing right for the community. And some of those are ownership tools, some of those are rental tools, some of them are financing, some of them are actually siting and choosing where to put the housing. But at Barcroft, I do think the 30% AMI goals that we have will be met, and it's really then how do we steward and support the residents through what we all know when we've had construction next door or on our home is disruptive and can be challenging.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
There you go.